All right, we are live. Welcome, Michelle. We introduced ourselves for a second. I wanted to thank you for joining us, joining me, having a conversation, a cup of coffee around just two people having a conversation about trying to get through perspectives. And I really value your discernment. I guess is the lack of the better word, but your perspective and I have a whole list of questions and things that I want to know about the way you feel. And there's no right or wrong answer. There's just your perspective on this. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for the time.
You're very welcome, Ken, and thank you for inviting me to talk to you. And I enjoyed our conversation last week with Rob and the typical skeptic. And I just think that we're living in difficult times for sure, where people are waking up. And at one time we were either sound asleep or we just believed what we were told because we couldn't even imagine that we were being played or manipulated, which I believe we very much are at this point. But I've been blogging since June of 2018 and making videos for my blog posts because I have this deep inner need to bring out this information that I've been sharing on hidden history and the advanced civilization that was here, I believe, up until not too long ago, that got destroyed along with a lot of other things. And there's just been one massive cover up after another to keep this information from us, I believe, in order to control us and our perception and use our energy. And those of us that don't experience pain and suffering are blessed. And that's a lot of people. But there's a lot of people that
I think to some extent we all do, even if it's self-inflicted. But yeah, I think we definitely need to have the conversation. It's funny you said that you think that we are being lied to, deceived. I mean, I think most people would believe that watching this. Actually, the first thing that I had to bring up was not in order, so sorry about that. We'll just go ahead and bring the subject up here. I had a thought about Alex Jones and the gatekeepers, and what you said is true. We're being lied to and manipulated, and I think one of the freedoms that we enjoy as Americans or people across the world on the internet is that we can kind of formulate our own opinions and our own theories. And I think that this really flew under the radar about the precedent set in the courts about saying what you want, saying you don't believe someone, saying that there's hired actors. And I think some people thought Alex Jones could say whatever he wanted. Some people think he's a truth seeker. I do not at all. I think he was a complete setup because the way that the courts work and the way that precedent works is you have to have a situation that occurs first, then you rule on it by law, and then everything after that sets the precedent, or you go to the Supreme Court and argue it. And what I mean by that is, when Alex Jones said he could say whatever he wanted about Sandy Hook, and they brought him into court, he was a complete setup martyr, and they ruled on it and fined him multi-million dollars for saying what he thought was the truth or what he was saying was the truth. He's not been jailed. He's not been he's not lost his livelihood. He's not lost anything. The only thing he lost was the precedent of the lawsuit. And the lawsuit basically said that you could not say what you wanted over the internet, over the TV, over whatever, freedom of speech. And I think that's a very dangerous precedent that was set. So that was one thing that came to my mind about our gatekeepers and keeping this information in. And now people are looking like, I can't say certain things because I might get sued. I might lose my livelihood. I might get thrown in jail when the precedent's now been set. So what are your thoughts about that? Have you thought about that before?
I think that whole subject is a multi-layered subject because the legal system isn't what we think it is. It's based on a shaky foundation. And so it's not an area of expertise for me, but I do know that what we believe to be true about the justice system and what actually is true are two different things. And then you get into the whole I'm trying to think of how to put this. So, the whole bar issue and the whole, U.S. corporation, and, the bar, is not serving us, it's serving the crown, and
Yep.
all that whole thing. And the Sesta QV Act of 1666, and, we're lost at sea. We were all put in a trust, and they're holding the trust until we go back and say, hey, I'm alive, and you have to prove it. And our straw men and the all caps, and they have to turn us into corporate fictions in order to be able to do anything with us. So that's one aspect of law. And then our legal system versus like natural law, common law, that kind of thing. I'm just speaking in general terms because it's not an area of expertise.
Right.
But
Yep.
I do know it's not what we think it is. And
it's
kind
a
of a
fear
setup.
mongering system too. I mean, it is completely out there to make sure that people are staying in line. It's almost the religious aspect of our legal society, is that if you commit sin, if you violate law, you could go to hell. Like it's completely fear mongered all the way up and down the system. And I don't know. I've heard before that some of the court system, some of the justice system actually doesn't have any reach. It's just all a show. I don't necessarily know if that's the case of what they can prove or whatever. But I thought that was interesting that that they may not have as much power as we think they do.
Right. And you just, there are people that know how to work with that and know about the UCC and sovereignty and the whole birth certificate thing and how all that works together. Because again, I do know, again, in general terms, that it's not what we think it is. And I have reason to believe that it goes back to the Sesta QV Act and the bonds and how much we're really worth and, what's really going on there. Because that's a real thing, and we don't know it. We don't know our birth certificates have been traded on the stock exchange. We don't know where the collateral for the national debt or have been.
Do you have knowledge of that? I've seen some of those videos. I have a copy of my birth certificate. I have the original birth certificate. Those numbers don't match. They don't seem to be in any kind of an order. So like I researched that. I didn't find anything to it. I don't know if it's legit or not.
I think it is. And I think the system's changing. I really believe we're at a time when the system we've been living under, which is pretty much rigged, is going to be dismantled, and we're going to go back to the gold standard and that kind of thing. I've been waiting for this for some time. It has not happened yet, but just from what I see on the social media that I follow, I think we're getting close to it. And it's also my personal belief that what's taken place here, the people behind it aren't going to get away with it. And with all the research I've done, I've got a pretty high level of understanding of the destruction and the genocide and all the things that have happened that we're taught as our history. But when you look at it, it's like, this has been manipulated. I mean, I've looked across alignments and recently been looking again at North Africa, and there's just civil wars from one end of Africa to the other that popped up at the end of their colonial rules. So they get independence from Britain or independence from France, and then the next thing you know, they've been turned into North and South and different belief systems and given guns, and they're fighting each other, and it's just a mess, and it was not like that before. That's all been manipulated. The 1884 Berlin Conference carved up Africa amongst the European colonial powers.
Can you elaborate on the ley lines and manipulation? Do you think that is like I know that they're connected map wise. Is that like a simulational lineup? Are they lined up any particular reason besides their onlay lines?
Well, I believe it's laid out according to sacred geometry, and that's like based on flower of life, and flower of life is like the creation pattern of the universe. And so you get into the Taurus and our Merkabas or Merkabas, however you pronounce it, and like our chariot, our vehicle, if we know how to use it, we can activate it and ascend, and it's our connection with each other, it's our connection with the earth, it's our connection with the universe. It's the same shapes. And so it's my belief that the original builders of the civilization, which I believe go back to ancient Mu, same Lemuria, what we know as Lemuria was the same civilization as Atlantis. And then I believe that existed up until relatively recently, and it got taken out. And that's the reset that I know.
Does that point to a simulated? Does that point to a simulated reality or a simulated effect? I mean, if all the world, if all the world is a stage and all its people are actors, does that point to maybe that's how these things are popping up? Is that they're simulated, or are they being stimulated to occur that way superficially?
I would say the latter on that model. The latter. Yeah, we're probably in a simulation, but I think originally we were at our highest potential as the creator in biological form, and we were working together. We were in unity consciousness. We knew who we were. We knew where we were. We knew the shape of the realm. We knew how to work with matter. We could build beautiful things, peace and harmony, and the big cathedrals and organs and bell towers, and everything was working perfectly together. And that's what I see this civilization as having been like. And some of it is still standing. A lot of it's been destroyed and fragmented and compartmented, so we don't make the connections of what it was before.
You just hit my next two subjects both back to back, like on the same time. We'll see which way you want to head. I have majestic buildings and nature's anomalies, or Atlantis and Lemuria, significance documentation. Where do you think that those ancient civilizations? What do you think that they were? Were they global, or were they high technologically advanced?
Yes, all of the above. It was amazing. It was amazing. And I've found the evidence along the ley lines, which are groomed lines of electromagnetic energy that's all connected, and it was connected to a free energy grid. And so, again, your examples of the cathedrals and train stations and all the things. And again, some of them are still standing, some of them aren't anymore, but there's still beautiful train stations in different places. I'm thinking of the one in Portland and one in Indianapolis. Just massive masonry structures, and that was all part of this energy grid system. The railroads, the streetcars, the subways, things that have been taken out in most places when they didn't need them anymore, or wanted to repurpose the energy or destroy it. There's not sure what's going on with that. So they're still using it, but it's instead of being for the benefit of all life everywhere, which it was, it's being reverse engineered and harvested. And somebody's, we're paying the electric company for our utilities.
They put a
meter on it. I think it's still free. It probably is.
Yeah,
but
probably is.
We're paying for it like we are everything else. And so the system was pretty much rigged, I believe intentionally, by the people that we know as the elites, the 1%, the Illuminati families, all the follow the money. They've been behind this, and opportunists, and I also believe they're not from here. I don't believe they're human. They've corrupted a lot of people, but in my mind, they are something else. They're not organic. They don't have the God spark. They're trying to take ours. There's just so many aspects to that, but they basically found a way to crash the party and did so. And
did they overthrow the party, or they crashed it?
They crashed it. Well, they did both. They hijacked it.
Were they in control of the other civilizations, do you believe? Or I know we don't really have any way of knowing that necessarily, but
no, I don't believe they were. They've been in control.
They're in control now. Yeah.
But prior to that, I think the way that I look at it, some people talk about the millennial reign of the Christ, and for me, that the Christ is us, and we don't know that. We're the crucified Christ. as a fractal of the creator. And one of the things that the controllers did when they took over was to pull that out. Everything's outside of us. We're nothing. But we are. That's why they've gone through all this trouble. We are something. We're very powerful and we don't know it. And so this civilization, I believe, was harmony. I believe it was based on the original 12 tribes, and their identity got taken, just like the Moors and the Moorish Masons' identity got taken with the Freemasons. And, you know, we got replaced with this, you know, you're descended from apes and this is the best it's ever been, and it's evolution, you know, that's the thing. And, you know, we just have a much better past and story about who we really are as human beings. That's just been ripped from us, you know, just like our connection with each other and with source. And so since I've been following ley lines and architecture and infrastructure, you know, in terms of documentation, actual documentation, it's pretty hard to find. Slim pickings. They took that out of there.
Is that the same as like a migration pattern? Because you would think that the ley lines, the electrical grid would people would follow where the structure was set up, right? Or they would harness them into areas where they already had. Like, I mean, I know you've seen the pictures of the old cities that are like massively built and beautiful architecture, and then you're like, where are the people at? And they show photos or paintings, and there's nobody there. And they're like, they moved the people into the cities where they were already set up.
So I think that's where the cataclysm came in. That there was, again, I absolutely believe there was a deliberately caused cataclysm. Other people believe it was natural event, recurring thing. You know, there may have been something that they harnessed with it, but I absolutely believe it was deliberately caused. And so there was a period of time where there just weren't people. You know, it got destroyed. This civilization got destroyed by a relatively recent event. It's called the mud flood. And I've definitely got some opinions on what I think caused it, but the bottom line is a lot of people were killed and we were much bigger in size. So giants, you get into the giants that are, you know, giant bones found all over the place in the 19th century. And now if they find a giant skeleton, the fact checkers are out saying it's a hoax. You know, these are things they don't want us to know. So there may have been some migration. I think there were probably pockets of real people living underground like the controllers were when this happened. So let's say sometime in the 1700s, 1800s of our current timeline, this would have been happening. They would have been resetting. They would have been, you know, creating their new world for their new world order, which is what we've been living under on the ruins of the old world, which is what's called Tartaria. I'm saying goes back to Mu and was the same Atlantean civilization that I believe existed all over the earth. But there were clearly continents in the Atlantic, in the Pacific, in the Indian Ocean. I've been looking at that recently. Not a place where we're encouraged to go look at all. They want us to keep believing that what we see on a map today is how it's always been, and continental drift and plate tectonics and things like that. That's what they gave us to explain everything.
Yeah, I mean, we don't even know. I mean, they still may exist. We for all we know, we don't have a clue. All we're shown is a map saying we're flying over the ocean. We're all asleep. We're all going on, you know, on nighttime flights over the ocean. We think we're flying over water. We could be flying over civilizations that are still there. We have no idea what's going on, in my opinion. I'm not saying that's the case, but you know, we fly over water and we, you know, at midnight and we're going, you know, or no sun, it's not lit up. We can't see the land masses, and all of a sudden we're like, oh, that's nothing. Or they can just fly right around it. We never see it.
Yeah. The only thing I know is we haven't been told the truth. I have done quite a bit of research into what I'm finding and what when I look around that whole subject, I can pull out a lot of information, but they're just trying to keep us in the dark and about the true nature of who we are in our reality or the realm that we live in. But as far as, so there may have been some migration going on, but I think more than anything, there's probably repopulation. And that's where you get into the orphan trains and the infantoriums and whatever those things are about.
What do you think happened with the insane asylums? I mean, I have my own personal opinion of hearing voices, that whole narrative back in the 70s, 80s. I hear voices, the more personalities, the movies, Sybil, and these kind of movies meant to make us think that if you were saying you heard voices, you were crazy. And then you have the insane asylums, the big, large buildings. What are your thoughts about that whole situation, and what have you found?
So at this point, these massive buildings that we were told were built as insane asylums and prisons and other things were original infrastructure, and that they were on the grid. They were important places on the grid, and that the controllers were inflicting maximum pain and suffering on people that either were nonconformists or had an alcohol problem because of all the alcohol that was being provided to all of us during the 19th century. Starting around the 1830s, breweries and distilleries were popping up all over the place. It was made abundant, still is today. Go to Las Vegas and gamble, and you can drink for free. They want us vibrating at a low level of consciousness. So I believe the grid system I talk about is connected to us and our consciousness. So they do things on the grid to keep our consciousness at a low level. So false flags and these insane asylums and whatever else are going on is being done deliberately. And one of the reasons I think it's taking longer for more people to wake up because of this just deep level of manipulation and mind control. TV programming, movies, books, music. I see things on my social media about that big ball in Las Vegas and these messages, or people going to concerts and bad things happening. Football games, the Super Bowl,
people
halftime show,
literally people turning crazy.
These
regular people,
they are literally messing with our minds through frequency. And I don't like scary movies. I never have. I do not fill my head with that.
My wife doesn't either. My wife does not.
I would much rather, and that's one of the reasons I got to where I am. I mean, I would much rather learn about alternative history and history's mysteries when I was younger. There wasn't a lot available when I was in my teenage years. There was a little bit, but there wasn't much. Most of it came with the internet. And so I like that kind of stuff. And then my own path led me to this education on megaliths and dowsers, finding these alignments and finding the electromagnetic lines of the grid system and the ley lines. And I started watching programs like that, and that was my foundation. And then I started getting in my own stream of information, which led to my own original research and how I even got here. And so I don't like scary stuff, but the controllers love to scare the crap out of us. They want us in fear. They want that to be our go-to emotional state, because when we're afraid, they can control us. And we all have to deal with some level of it. When I mentioned pain and suffering earlier, I mean, we all do experience that, but some people experience it beyond belief.
Yep.
And when you get into what's happening to children, child trafficking, child sex trafficking, kids in cages, all that kind of stuff, that's a thing. I don't focus on it. I'm aware of it. You know, that level of suffering, or, you know, you live in a place and you're on a hurricane path or a tornado path, and I believe that's all engineered.
Yep.
Um,
And
that's
the weather manipulation.
absolutely. So that's a pain. Um, you know, I feel blessed that I've had a life where I'm 61 now. I was probably in my 40s when I started to get this other view on what this world is really like. And it didn't kick up into high gear until probably, let's say sometime after 2012 was when it was like I woke up spiritually between 2006 and 2012. And then from 2012 to 2016 was when I started learning how dark the dark was. And 2016 was when I started getting in my particular stream of information. And then 2018 was when I started blogging and making videos. And so I'm aware of a lot of things, but I don't I tend not to go to the dark side. I bring it up every once in a while if it fits in with something I'm working on. But you know, you kind of you gave Alex Jones as an example. I've heard that about him for a long time. You know, that he's not what people think he is. But I think the thing that all of us need to keep in mind with anybody, myself included, is discernment.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if that's what feels your gut's telling you, then go with it. But one of the problems that we face is that we've got information coming at us from all directions. And if you watch the mainstream news, you're getting the same canned, programmed information, what the controllers want us to know. And it's the same, you know, keep the fear going. So when anybody says, I'm for the other side, okay, that's great. We're looking for information. We want to find that out. But then within that, it's so easy to divide people on the same side.
Yep, it is.
Just by whispering and saying, oh no. You know, so it's really discernment. You know, I think at the end of the day, do your own research, keep an open mind to everything, because everything is open to question. But if it's like, I want to say, you know them by their fruits. You know, if there seems to be a good spirit and good things coming from what somebody's doing, then, you know, to me that would probably be a good indicator. And I'm not thinking of a specific person when I say that.
Right.
I mean,
Yep.
with anybody, you know, if they seem to be doing good things and have happy people, you know, or
Around them,
as opposed to them saying they're doing good things and not have
and they're
happy
not.
people, and, you know, because there's so many layers of all this. Like I said before, it's like you hear about charities, you know, and you think you're helping, whether it's the Red Cross or kids organizations or whatever else, and then
Mm-hmm.
today it's like they're like the worst offenders.
The
So
the Red Cross and the blood banks are an example of, you know, what we didn't have a clue what the hell was potentially going on. You know, 20, 30 years ago, you're like, give blood. And then you find out, hold on a second, there may be people actually who need that blood to what, live longer, adrenochrome potentially, or, you know, you ask yourself, I asked myself a long time ago, why would they want to sell traffic kids? Like, we need slaves to what, build gardens and houses? Like, what sense does that make? And then you start realizing what the pieces that fit in there, and you're like, okay, hold on, that's a little darker than I thought. And you know, potentially, the blood. I saw a truck the other day. Did I save the thing? I did. I never heard of this company in my life. I saw a truck drive by. The company's name, it's apparently it's a big one. I never knew the name of it. It's that big red bus that you go donate for movie theaters. It's called One Blood, and the slogan is like, keep the power on or something. I mean, it's mind blowing that, we don't see these things until our eyes are kind of open. And then you're like, whoa, wait a minute. What is that? What in the world? That's the big red bus. And you're always seeing the ads on TV for, donate blood. We need blood. And I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I can't tell you what's going on inside of a hospital, but I don't think that there are that many blood transfusions going on all the time. Maybe I'm wrong, but you would think they would have plenty of blood, stored in, that they don't need to be always doing that.
There's a lot more murky stuff under the surface than most people could even think possible.
Mhm.
And I guess it's just kind of a side effect of waking up that you start to learn about all these other things on the side. And, like I said, I don't focus on it. I'm aware of it. But I think, not everybody's going to want to know the full spectrum.
Sure.
I know enough to know I don't want to know much more than what I know. but we can't deny that things haven't gotten pretty bad.
Yeah.
And
What do you,
bury our heads.
This is a screwball coming at you, but I think I know the answer because I believe there's a genetic trait in certain people. What's your blood type?
I think it's A positive.
I would have thought you would have been an Rh negative for sure. It seems to be a lot of people in the truth community, or people that really see things differently, have a rarer blood type. And for my interpretation, most of them are negative Rh bloodlines. But have you looked into the bloodlines at all? I mean, I know we talked a little bit about the Nephilim. You talked about the Nephilim a little bit, and I guess one of the things that is an odd anomaly for Rh negative is it means you don't have a rhesus antigen, I believe, and so your protein for A and B is not there, and so it's considered off world, or and the reason it is because a negative mother and a positive offspring will actually try to kill the baby. So it's not a natural occurring thing to the earth. I just said a lot of words right there. Do you know anything about the negative bloodlines?
I really don't. I do not believe I'm from here. I do see myself as a starseed, but I do, whatever family I incarnated into, I I ended up with a pretty common blood type. But our blood is very important. I mean, there's so much that's been hidden from us, and how we're all connected, and the sacred geometry are in our own bodies. It's pretty amazing. But that's not a topic I know very much about.
Okay, just curious. I'm an O negative, and I knew I was O negative before I even got my blood tested. I just knew. I saw the markers, and I'm like, I'm definitely that one. But I have mandibular tori in my mouth, so I have like some of the extra rows of teeth in the bottom. They're not teeth; they're actually just like I don't know, roots or whatever they're called. But so I knew I had some of those traits before I tested my blood, and I was telling people that I was, and I knew that I was. And then I got it tested, and I'm like, yep, there it is, done. Just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, but a bigger issue from that topic, including me having reason to believe I'm a starseed, is we're not alone. We're definitely not alone. And I think the beings behind the world we've been living in, which has been harvesting us and all the resources here, all organic life, they're not from here either.
I believe that for sure.
So it's like, are you familiar with Dolores Cannon and
Yep.
the idea of volunteer souls? So I've kind of think that's falls kind of along why I'm here.
Yeah, I think so. And she talks about Rh negative bloodlines as well, and supposedly, that is, it's not from the blood's not from the earth. I have anemic tendencies. So I need the iron, I need the blood, I need the, I need that personally for me, the meat, or, supplements. She talks about the rulers, and so does David Icke. The rulers of this world are, he'll say they're reptilian or whatever, but, they are a certain genetic marker. And for me, it formulates a little bit of a story about NPCs and potentially the cloning and the people who are maybe not as conscious as other people, and them doing the dirty work or whatever you may have. I have a whole different view of that, but that kind of, it goes back to what you were saying about maybe not being from here, but having a mission to assist and to help. And I've always said that, I've had a lot of multi-variety friends growing up. I don't believe I am colorblind, but I've always said that I was colorblind to skin color regardless. And I said, what color is your soul? And those are the things that I really believe in, that this is an avatar body. It's not who I am. It's not my essence, but it's who I'm incarnated into. So to make a long story short, I think that we all have a role to play, whether you have a specific markers or not. I think that my markers are probably in line with what I've heard, as far as people that are in control, and they're good and bad people on both sides of the fence, I think too. So, I'm like you. I believe I have a role to play, at least a small one, potentially, to help.
Yeah. Well, based on the family that I was born into, I should have no knowledge of any of the things that I talk about. It was fairly conventional upbringing, conventional family, Southern Baptist, go to church on Sunday, pretty normal that way. There was none of this stuff. I have called my parents poster kids for Operation Mockingbird. I mean,
oh, wow.
Take it hook, line, and sinker. That's the truth. The TV guy said it, so therefore it must be true. And that whole generation, my parents' generation was raised like that. You watch the evening news, you read the paper every day. I was never affected by that, and I was always interested in all this alternative stuff. And it's like I attracted the experiences in some way, shape, or form to me that I needed to have throughout the course of living my life that led me to doing this work. Books I read, programs that I watched, people that I met, intuition that I had. And that's my gift, is my intuition. I don't see things. I'm not clairvoyant. I'm not clairaudient. I would probably be clairsentient or claircognizant or something like that, because
or an empath.
And definitely an empath. I'm definitely an intuitive empath. So that's how I get information, is intuitively. And so that's why I believe I was born to do this. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that I came in to do this work to help humanity. And sometimes I'm like, why did I come here? This is just too hard.
You're rethinking it a little bit.
Well, but then I know why I came here.
Do you feel so? One of the core tenets of my awakening 5 years ago was suffering, and I feel like if we don't suffer, and I know it sounds cliche, but if we don't suffer, we can't. We can't be, I don't want to say enlightened, because enlightened, it sounds like it's, I'm a holier than art or whatever, but enlightenment is just a state of consciousness, and knowing the rule set. Do you feel that you have suffered just enough to make you who you are? Because I wouldn't change anything from my point of view. I lost both my parents, excuse me, relatively, not relatively young, but younger than any of my friends. And I feel like I wouldn't be where I am or who I am if I didn't have that situation.
Right. And I would feel the same way. I mean, my issue was having kind of dysfunctional parents that really didn't know how to parent. And I would not be the same person either, so same result, different way of that happening. But to speak to that, what came to my mind when you said that is that, why aren't we born with the knowledge as children? I mean, why don't we come in with it?
Do you think that do you think that we don't? I guess you just said we don't. I would
So
say
we
it's
don't.
almost programmed out of us.
So, but then some of us remember it.
Yeah,
So like
I
it's
have
almost
free.
like there's a timer or something
Yeah,
that goes off. But wouldn't it be nice if we knew what we knew then
100%.
than
I
what we know now? So
I
there
have.
is a
Yeah.
reason, and we have to experience. So like say we, so I have reason to believe I'm my soul essence is Pleiadian. So if I came in knowing that, my life would have been, I think my life would have been easier, but maybe not. I don't know. But we have to have the experiences of being here. I think to be effective, say as light workers or however, whatever we identify as that way.
Yeah.
So we have to go through the gamut. And so I was born in 63. And so as I'm becoming aware of things, I'm, going to movies in the 70s, and there's a whole slew of disaster movies. And so like one of them is the Poseidon Adventure, which I saw in the theater. Now, I recently connected that to this whole reset story and how they have to tell us things. And, they're telling us something with the Poseidon Adventure, but I never thought that in 1972, when it came out, when I was 9 years old, that I was being told something, and I watched the Olympics in 1972 in Munich when the terrorists took the Israeli gymnastic team and all that happened with that. I never would have thought that was a false flag, or any of the things that happened in the 70s and the 80s. And I think MK Ultra went global in 1980, 1981, and that was when suicide bombing started and planes started blowing up out of the sky, and all this stuff, again, to get us into fear. But
And the Challenger in '86.
well, I remember that. And so I'm just saying that at the time in our world, in our collective evolution, we weren't thinking that. Masonic
Well,
plot, are
yeah,
you kidding?
yeah, and that's kind of where I was going with. Did we come into it and it was just taken from us quickly? I remember very vividly. I don't know the year that I was in, but I had a friend in the car. I was probably in second grade, potentially first, maybe third. We were coming back from Disney. I lived in Orlando at the time. I was raised there. And my mom and dad were in the front seat, and I was in the middle with my two sisters and my friend. And my mom turns to me and says, it was kind of discussion, and she said, "Well, you should be happy that we had you." And I turned to her as an 8-year-old or a 7-year-old, and I said, "Well, I may not be in this body, but I would still be here." I mean, I was raised Catholic. To say something like that and to remember something like that is just, it's not normal. Like, I know that it's not normal. Nobody could say that that's what I was programmed to say or to be, or the religious upbringing that I had. But it's funny, I still believe the same thing. Like, I believe this is my body, but it's not my essence, and I would be having a different experience. If I would have known that I was from the Pleiadians or another starfleet or something, would I identify with all of humanity that I think is completely stupid and ignorant and brainwashed, and just, are they worth saving? I mean, I don't mean to be unempathetic, because I think that we are all one species right now. But if I knew I wasn't from here and these people act different, would I really be empathizing with them? I don't know. So I think that the experience can also change us into being better people, or experience, having more tolerance. I need more tolerance in my life. I need the lessons, and I embrace that I still have many flaws daily. But I think we all need to have that grounding that you said, when we talk about that, or that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we definitely need the perspective of being part of this place. And even I've had a good life. It's not always been easy, and I've had my share of really difficult experiences. including losing my husband in 2001, I guess is when he died, but he had a long illness that I found out many years later was connected to Agent Orange. And when we got married, I was 25 and he was 41, and he lived, no, I was 25, he was 44, 19 years older than me. And then we went from one health problem to another health problem, and he died in 2001 and he was almost 57, and we were married almost 13 years. And it was a super hard experience, and it led to a dark night of the soul for me. But at the end of that dark night of the soul, I was like, I took control of my life back, and I've been going up ever since. I mean, that's, had I stayed where I was, I would have just had a miserable life.
Good for you.
Instead, I started on my path that brought me here. So where I'm going with that is, because there's so much messiness with people, a lot of different emotions and ways of interacting, and you got narcissism, and you've got passive aggressive, and you've got manipulative. I mean, however people get energy, and I'm very giving by nature, and so I've kind of had to pull in because of learning the hard way, not just to give my energy to whoever. It was a hard lesson for me. But it hasn't stopped it. It hasn't stopped the fact that I love to give, and that I like to help people, and that that brings me joy. But I've had to learn to be careful, because I've been burned and trusted too much, trusted the wrong people, gave too much when I shouldn't have. But sometimes I think we have to learn those lessons when we're in them, because I don't see them coming. And then when I'm in it, it's like, ooh, oops. But it has not jaded me, is what I'm trying to say. It hasn't kept me from wanting to be that person, and still, that's still who I am. But I've had to just, I kind of pull into my little shell. I have a pretty dull life, except for the research that I do and the contact I have online and things like that with interviews and so forth.
You're like a New Age monk.
I guess so.
You're a New Age researching monk.
So there's that aspect to it, but then there's like when you're awake and you go out into the marketplace and nobody else is awake, that's hard too.
You see it all. And you're trying not to judge people, but it's tough. I got a guy, one of my neighbors over here in outside of Tampa areas, cutting his grass the other day in 95-degree weather with a mask on. And I'm looking at him like, there's nobody in there. There's no dialogue. There's nothing going on in there. There's no way. What do you think about inner dialogue? Do you think that everyone has it, or do you think that some people just got nothing in there?
Some people don't ask questions. And then when you start asking questions, it can really shake your reality and create a lot of dissonance. And a lot of people don't want to go there. And, when you start digging into the truth and going down the rabbit holes, it can be pretty disturbing, to put it mildly. So I think people just don't want to go there. And some of the personalities that I've had in my life, it's like, don't confuse me with the facts. They're set that they don't want to be challenged for any reason. And
they have peace. They found peace, and they stopped there.
Yeah.
And, or they like dysfunction, and they stay there. We have some family members that like dysfunction, and I tell my wife, you got to let go, because I don't deal with dysfunction. That's not a choice that I'm looking to make in my life. No, thank you.
Yep.
Maybe we get something else. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it's like this world we live in has been intentionally created. It's not our normal state of being. It's not our birthright. It's what we've been given. And the fact that any of us are waking up at all with the level of extreme stress and psychological abuse
It is incredible.
is incredible. It is,
Mm.
you know, and I have said in the past, I'll keep saying it. I really believe that we're going to have a good outcome sooner rather than later. But to me, a big indicator of that is if those people were still in control, we would still be living in 2020. You know, it wouldn't be opening back
Right.
up the way that it has. And so even though it may not look like it on the surface, I do believe good things are happening, and that we have help, or whether divine help or positive beings. I do believe we have help, and that and they couldn't just come in and do what they wanted to do. That's why they did this. They had to have our consent. And so the only way they could get that is to lie to us and then give us like this disclosure in movies and things like
See who's
that.
paying attention is what I say. In like I think late 2020, I told my wife, I said, I think this is a big psyop to see who's really awake, who's paying attention, who could be a clone, who could be nobody's in there. Like it just seemed like to me, all the stuff that you could see on TV, all the stuff you see outside it was so obvious. And if you fell for it or you didn't pay attention, it was like, man, there's something different between you and me. Like it really showed me that we may be all one humanity, but we are not all consciously the same.
Right. And I know I've talked to a lot of people that woke up during that time. Now they had time, they started asking questions. And so they couldn't just come in and do it. And they knew that this was going to happen. And so they've done everything they could possibly do to stop the awakening, but they can't stop it. And so we're living those times where there's the people that were red pilled a long time ago that know how bad, how much control they had and what was going on. They're still afraid that these guys still have power, but I do not believe they do.
I don't know if they ever had real power. They could manipulate television. They can do a lot of these things to show us what's going on. They can make movies. Like they have that kind of power and influence. But I don't think they tried to martial law us, I believe, and that was a joke. That didn't happen.
Yeah, and there's a lot of moving pieces right now. I wouldn't rule out that possibility in the near future, but if that happens, I don't think it's going to be a bad thing. I think it'll be a good thing. And because I think our system, our government system, our courts, all of that is so corrupt that
it needs to be exposed.
That there's certain things about the military that get done faster and in a different way than in a system that's been corrupted for a very long time. And justice would never happen in the court system the way that it is today, but it can happen in a military court. So I think, like I said, if my prediction is if that happens, it's going to be for the good. It's going to come out for the good. It's not going to come out for control, because they have to clean house. And when you talk about the levels of treason in our government,
oh, it's insane.
They're not going to find themselves guilty.
Nope.
Sure, I've been selling secrets to the Chinese.
There's no laptop. We didn't find anything in that laptop. Nothing. We can chit chat all day. I'd like to get into some of your knowledge. Can you talk to me about Brookhaven? What is that? My son plays a game called Among Us. It's, I don't know, one of the top 3 games in the world, probably especially with kids. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it's called Among Us, and they're in a Brookhaven laboratory, and there are imposters and crewmates. And I'll let you tell me what the hell is going on with that.
I don't know, but how old is your son?
He's 9.
I would say, as a dad, you might want to think about it. Telling him
I don't hold anything from him because I like to have the conversations about what things are. Like I don't not curse around him because I don't want to be one of those people that tells him, if I don't do it, you don't do it, because I think that just causes rebellion. So I like him to think for himself. And when he does things that I don't like, I tell him that's not a good decision. And then we talk about it a little bit. And I hopefully that she's gone. She'll be back. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this. If you have any questions, please hit them in the comment section. We can talk about them. She should be back any second. She probably got kicked off. Oh.
Sorry, Ken.
There you go.
Did it again. I wish they
That's
would
okay. No
present
worries.
a different place. So I just wanted to show you how I found Brookhaven.
Okay, go for it.
What if I can? Okay. All right. So maybe I'm not going to, but I'll tell you how I found Brookhaven. So I believe that the Philadelphia experiment had something to do with where we are today, and that it wasn't made invisible. I think it was teleported and went back in time. When I was doing research for something I put up just recently, it's also out there that it went 40 years in the future. My belief is it went 200 years, or it went into the past. Yeah, about 200 years. And that was part of my experience too. And let me just go over this real quick because it does relate. So you asked, how did I get my information? Well, I had found global cities and places in alignment, linear and circular, and I started tracking them. And so I was starting to collect information that way and starting to do my research. And I was kind of intuitively looking at the years of 1492 and 1942 being significant, 1717 as the midpoint year, figure 8 kind of thing, because there's 225 years on either side of 1717. And I lived in Sedona. I had a lot of friends that were psychic, and one lady came over to see me and knocked on my bedroom door and said, "Hi, how are you doing? I see your guides. They wanted me to tell you something." And they showed her a picture of Ireland in 1743, I believe she said, or 1742, that was bright and sunny. And on one side and on the other side, it was cold and frozen. And so I looked up that year, 1742, and I found that that was the year of the premiere of Handel's Messiah in Dublin, Ireland. And that was also at the end of the Great Frost of Ireland, which I'd never heard of before. I would not have looked there before.
Is that the potato famine?
No. It was 21 months of extremely cold weather, no known cause, 500,000 people died, that kind of thing. It's in the historical record. Never heard of it before. Started doing research around that, and I had already had the Philadelphia experiment in the back of my mind as being significant. I wasn't thinking of time traveling naval vessel then, but that had entered my mind that there was a connection. And then when I found the Great Frost of Ireland, I started to pull in the idea that it created a rip in the fabric of space-time. And then in 1744, Mayor Rothschild was born, the first Rothschild of the banking family. Then in 1748, Adam Weishaupt was born, the founder of the Bavarian Order of the Illuminati. And then in 1750, Duke Francis of Saxe-Coburg-Saalfeld was born, and he was the progenitor of what became the House of Windsor and replaced not only the British royal family, but others as well.
German, right? And they changed the House of Windsor. It was a German name before, correct?
It was the House of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha.
Okay.
And then there's just this whole thread that goes through this place. And so I was looking at the Philadelphia experiment, and then I had come across information before I started doing my own research that there was a connection between Aleister Crowley and the Philadelphia experiment, that he did a magical ceremony on the day of the Philadelphia experiment by putting his child through the Manentol megalith, and then that caused a line of energy to go across towards Long Island. And in the tip of Long Island, there's a lighthouse, and that's where the Montauk project was. And then, so anyway, that line goes on down through the coastal pine barrens of Massachusetts, through the central pine barrens of Long Island, and through the New Jersey pine barrens. And then the New Jersey pine barrens, there's Ong's Hat, and then you have Philadelphia right there, the naval yard. And Ong's Hat is a location in New Jersey where there's like this portal. And I know this was on your question list.
Yep.
And so there's like this lore around it. But there's also this persisting thing about it being a portal, a dimensional portal. So, for example, Brookhaven National Laboratory is in Long Island, central Long Island, on this alignment that I call the Philadelphia Experimental Ley Line. So you've got the lighthouse, you've got Plum Island, which is a biological lab in that vicinity. You've got Brookhaven. You've got where Wardenclyffe Tower was, where Tesla's experiments were, just to the northwest of Brookhaven on this alignment. And then it goes on down. And so I believe that land was all destroyed. The pine barrens are the result of destroyed land. Brookhaven has a reverse of CERN. Brookhaven National Lab has the exact opposite of the CERN particle accelerator, Large Hadron Collider. So
CERN runs one way and that runs the other way. Right. One's counterclockwise, one's clockwise. So it's almost making a figure 8 in your Infinity 8. Okay.
So Brookhaven has the reverse hadron collider from what CERN is in Geneva. There's also a light synchrotron. A lot of high particle physics experiments going on there, and if you've heard the program like Stranger Things. Stranger Things was originally called Montauk. I think a lot of MK. I don't see it as a good association when you start looking at national labs like Brookhaven.
What was it famous for? The laboratory. What were they experimenting? What was the laboratory for? Do you know?
I'm gonna look. StreamYard's giving me a hard time with sharing my screen. So, and when I was looking on in this place, I didn't know I was going to find that. I had no idea, but it's very, very close to Montauk Point, where all of the MK Ultra stuff happened, supposedly. But no, that didn't really happen. Conspiracy theory. It's like no. Weird stuff. So I'm just going to my thing here. Brookhaven National Laboratory. Okay. The laboratory has developed a broader mission over time, including nuclear and high energy physics and chemistry of materials, nanoscience, energy and environmental research, national security and nonproliferation, neuroscience, structural biology, and computational sciences. The research facilities of Brookhaven National Laboratory include the relativistic heavy ion collider, or HIC, the first and one of 2 operating heavy ion colliders, and only spin polarized proton collider ever built. And if you look at a picture of the heavy ion collider at Brookhaven, it looks exactly opposite to the one in Geneva. It's the same layout and everything. We are told it supports basic and advanced energy technologies and a wide variety of applications, from nanocatalyst-based fuel cells to economical use of solar energy and high-temperature superconductors in a high-capacity and high-reliability electric grid.
Which means nothing to me.
Yeah, I got that.
A lot of scientific nonsense, potentially.
So that's so, but again, it's just like with CERN. What's going on at CERN? Well, they're trying to find the particle and the Big Bang and all that stuff. But then you hear they're like bringing in demons and things like that. So it's like they tell us one thing, but then there's the shady stuff. So we don't know, because they always put a positive spin on everything that they're doing.
Do you think, well, under the same kind of consequences, do you think if that portal is taking stuff in or out, do you think it's staying inside of the simulation or this reality, or do you think it could potentially be communicating outward?
I would say the latter. It's probably communicating outward.
Sending outward.
And I look at as like energy, harvesting our energy, but also mining.
It's got to go somewhere. I mean, energy in the system, recycle doesn't do anything.
Yeah, and this place has been extensively mined. I mean, it's ridiculous. The gigantic holes all over the surface of the earth for mining. So I don't think that's just staying here. I think that's going somewhere else too. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's connected to Montauk.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that laboratory is just particle colliders. And you said neuroscience in there. I don't know what that has to do with anything. I would be interested to know where that goes.
And that's what I can find just researching. That's like what's if you look up Wikipedia or something, that's kind of what's out there. But again,
neuroscience is more like the epigenetics section of the body. Like, are they colliding things in someone's body? Are they trying to make Frankenstein? I mean, what the hell? What does that have to do with the body? The particle colliders. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, are they mashing DNA together? I mean, neuroscience is very specific. It's not external. That's internal.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's just my 2 cents of what that has to do with anything. It doesn't have to do with.
That kind of gets into, you mentioned magic earlier. That's kind of, we're getting into that territory of things aren't what we think, and they know how to manipulate things in a magical way. And whereas I think the original civilization did too, I think they did it for benefit. If you talk about ancient mystery schools and things like that, I think the controllers have manipulated it for our detriment and to control us and spell cast and things like that. But I use that word in that connection because that whole area that goes along that corridor between Montauk and, say, like Ong's Hat and Philadelphia is magical. And I think that's why that was chosen for this. There's something about it that was prized by the original civilization, but also by these beings that know how to manipulate what already exists. So they may not be able to create it like we can.
They're trying to replicate it. I wonder what our founding fathers. I mean, even if they were mad scientists, this is a cue into my lead-in. What did they know about the past, the history? Check this out. I don't know if you've seen this or not, but I'm going to share my screen, let people see this. This may or may not be something that people are aware of. The chilling story behind 1,200 skeletons in Benjamin Franklin's basement in London. Were you aware of that?
No, I had not heard. That was one of the things on your list that I wasn't familiar with.
So they're speculating that he was a mad scientist or that somebody used his house in his basement. 1,200 bones. So they were experimenting down in his basement, without a doubt. Anyway, you guys can read a story on that potentially if you're looking at it. But yeah, one of our founding fathers has some skeletons in the basement, literally.
I think they all did, actually.
Oh, they
I
definitely did.
have a lot of questions about what's true and what's not true in our history, and they were Masons and Freemasons, and I think these beings, I think Dolores called them archons, and
Yep.
David's reptilians. I think they infiltrated the Masonic lodges through the 33rd degree primarily, and so they were
Why do you think that
Freemasons.
why are they called 33? Why are they called 33-degree Mason? What is behind
So
that? Is
well,
that a
so there's
specific
in
number?
Moorish Masonry, there's 360 degrees, a
Okay.
circle. So let's just say that when the Moors were going down, I'm just guessing, kind of an educated guess, but just guessing, these Freemasons only were allowed up to a certain level. So the 33rd degree. 32nd degree is like freezing in, our Fahrenheit world. So they were like frozen around 32, 33.
Oh, okay, 32
And
degrees
so they don't
Fahrenheit.
have
Yep.
access to the 360 degrees that the original Masons had. And, levels of mastery and moving into adept status and, understanding the secrets of the world, the universe. So I think the infiltrators came in through the Masonic lodges and kind of started the process of inverting everything. And so maybe they couldn't build these cathedrals, but they could, put a plaque on it or a founding stone and saying, we did this year. And so they, they stole their identity. And, that's a whole nother aspect to it, because people don't know about the Moors, and the Moors are real, very real. And that was an intro-way. A Moorish American man that I met in Oklahoma City in 2013 was my introduction to that subject, or I would never have known about it, and I'd be like everybody else. So let's figure out what I was going to say. So they got into the Masonic lodges and started their use of sacred geometry and symbols for black magic purposes and things like that. And again, that's an unfortunate thing about our world that people don't know about, but it's very true. I mean, they're spell casting. Some people know that on the monster drink,
Yeah, there's a 666. Yep, letter of the beast.
There's
Aramaic.
sigils. I see a drink at Whole Foods called Liquid Death that I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole.
Yep.
And you could probably say the same thing for Red Bull and other drinks. There's this poisoning going on, and it's in our air, it's in our clothes, it's in our food. They don't want us at top form. They want a diminished version of us. And some people have the mental fortitude, I'm not one of them, to be able to live completely consciously with regards to natural materials and foods and things like that. And I like ice cream way too much and eat all the wrong things, I'm sure. But there's that.
I just placebo all that. I say they don't say that it's good for me, and I say that's great for me. I completely flip it. I'm immune to all that stuff. My new world has changed in the last couple of years, and whatever they say, I laugh in the face of that. And every day I'm getting healthier, and I don't agree with anything. I think it's all mind control. It's a mind F, and if you believe it, you're absolutely going to experience it. So I believe the opposite, and that's. I have a funny little quip. My cynical mind, when you said the more people. So it goes back to the conversation that me and you and Chad had, and I asked you about the Masons, and I said I think I just created a story where there were these cities and civilizations or buildings that were already there before the people inhabited them. And when people came to the city, to go, who built this? They said, we did. Like, you guys are Freemasons? Yeah, we built all this. We're all Freemasons. We built this ourselves. Like, they didn't build it, but they claimed it as Freemasons, like they built it. So now you said more people, and now thinking of the orphan trains, and you were like, bring in more people. Oh yeah, you guys are the Moors. Come on in. So I kind of formulated another little theory as the semantics of the words.
And you may not be far off with that, Ken. I mean, there's a lot in our words that tell us a lot of stuff, and we just take it for granted that it's our language. But spelling,
Spelling,
English,
there's a good one. Yep.
There's just a lot of connections to when they created this new world. They created languages, and they created religions, organized religions, and organized sports, organized gambling, all pretty much the same.
Created a lot of stuff. They also manifest things, which this is one of the. This is where I want to talk to you about some stuff, because this has been on my mind for a minute, and I heard you mention in one of your you mentioned it with Rob and my talk as well last week or 2 weeks ago, and that is the something big potentially could be coming. So I've been thinking about this a long time for the significance of the letter X, and it's all over the place now. Like it's out of control. X. So Twitter is now X, obviously, but Twitter was Twitter. Now it's just called X. We have Xbox has been the console to control the kids for a long time. X is the unknown. X marks the spot. We have X-rays. X is the 24th letter in the alphabet, which is interesting because we're in year 2024. So X is almost a technological significance. X means missing. X is SpaceX. I mean, Windex. X is a former. So you may not have thought about this, but you said before that something big could be coming, a false flag or some kind of an event. And they've been postulating for a while that the internet's going to break down and we'll reset our system and there'll be things coming. We're in the 24th letter, which is X. This is the age of X. These are some of the things that happen when you talk about 9/11, and 911 was the phone number you called when you had an emergency, and then September 11th happened, and there were signs right in front of our face the whole time. Do I have any merit to this potentially? Have you thought about this being 24? The year 2022?
No, I haven't. But I do believe we're on the verge of some pretty amazing things happening, and not bad things. It might get weird, but it's especially for people that are sound asleep, that don't know anything about the kinds of things that we've been talking about. It might be a bit of a rough road for them, but I think the system where we've just been stolen from continuously, whether it's trading our birth certificates on the stock market, not knowing about it, or paying taxes, paying for our utilities when we don't have to, like we were talking about. I think that system, that cabal banking system, all that stuff, I think we're so close to that being gone. The Federal Reserve, the IRS, the U.S. corporation versus the Republic, and when all that happened, it just seems like things are in the works to become public knowledge in the near future to restore the gold standard.
The Vatican gold. How much gold in the Vatican? What do you think? You've had to think about this. What the hell are they hiding in the Vatican archives? What do you think? You have any idea?
Real books, real history.
Real history, yeah.
Real history.
Is it possible that the history from this place is actually not from this place? Do you think maybe it's I mean, if it is from another star seed or another, I don't believe in space, but I'm not saying that it doesn't exist anywhere, just not what we're looking at up there,
Yeah.
what we're told.
I'm getting there, Ken. I mean, I think this, whatever we're on, is like the center of the universe, like the geocentric
Yeah, I
theory.
believe it. Yeah.
And that this was like, this is what kept everything in balance. This system originally, the cathedrals, the bell towers, the
The
organs,
frequency.
you know,
Yeah.
everything was in balance, probably climate controlled, um, harmonious, not what we've been taught at all.
The
So,
cross on top of all the old buildings, that wasn't
mhm,
Christ.
right. So that had like, that would be like Antiquitech, that would be serving a function on this energy system, free energy grid system. Um, so, I mean, it's easy to get sidetracked. So this place is important and coveted, and we're gonna just like steal. So again, I think all of that is coming to an end, of that, just that brazen theft and robbery. And that whatever was under the Vatican is just probably it. And we all know about the Vatican Library, right? And
Yeah, we don't know
we
what's
all
under
know
there.
about
We
it.
don't know what's in there.
We're not allowed to go in. We're not allowed to go to Bilderberger meetings, but we know they're having them. It's like they're thumbing their nose. You know, don't go there. We don't want you to go see that. And again, I think that time is coming to an end, and we'll just see how quickly it happens. And maybe I'm wrong, but I just really feel like this really can't go on. Either things get better,
Or they
or
get worse.
we're in trouble.
Or
And I'm not going down the we're in trouble road.
yeah. All right. So we've talked about a lot of things, obviously. I'd like to get your interpretation. Again, we talked about the respect that I have for your discernment. So if I could fire away a few questions on some things that I haven't prefaced you before, but what are your thoughts on reincarnation and a few
Absolutely.
other questions? Yes. Okay.
Yep.
What do you make of near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, astral travel, psychic experiences, those kind of things? Where do you think that those are originating from? Or do you have a thought about them, theories about them?
I've not experienced them. Off the top of my head, I can't think of knowing somebody that has, but I probably have known somebody that has, and I'm just not pulling them up.
Your friends that are psychics, where are they getting that information from, do you think?
I think other dimensions. So let's, we can talk about, if there's not outer space, then there's at least other dimensions
Or
of
there's a field. Could be. Do
life.
you believe there's an Akashic field?
Yeah.
With information? If this would be a simulation, there would be access to that, right? I mean, we could tap into that potentially.
I would think so. And if we were at a higher consciousness level, more than just a few people probably could do that. I mean, I'm sure I've known people that can tap into the Akashic records. I'm not one of them, but I've known people that talk about it. So there's just so much that we don't know about this place we are, and what it all means. I do know it's not what we've been told, and that we've been taught to think we're crazy if we believe in the spirit world, or things that we can't see. Well,
Another realm.
They're real. I mean, when my husband was dying, the week before he died, so this was like Monday, and he died on Saturday. And his organ systems were shutting down. He was exposed to Agent Orange in Vietnam. We didn't know anything about what was causing all of his health problems, but we did know at some point he ended up with aneurysms in his aorta. So we had that repaired, and then he found out that he was going to lose his kidneys. We didn't know what was causing all of this, and come to find out many years later, it was Agent Orange. But when the week before he died, he went out to La La Land. He had a heart attack when he was on dialysis, and he, Monday he's somewhere else. And I'm listening to him talk, and he said, "Oh, there's my dad. Hi, Dad. Hi, Mom. Hi, Bev," his sister, his parents, and a sister who had passed away he was talking to. Well, he wasn't with it.
Mm-hmm.
He was not with it. And they said, "Oh, I see some guy floating around over there, or some yellow guy," So he was seeing things.
He
And
pierced
there's
the
no
veil.
doubt in my mind that,
Yep.
what he was seeing was real. And I have not had that experience, but that does exist. I do believe, actually, I take that back. I do believe I have help from the other side with whatever I'm doing, guides or whatever you want to call them. I feel like, the universe wants this information to come back out, and that I have somebody working with me, or people, a group. And I'm just a vessel. I'm a well-prepared vessel.
Aren't we all?
So
hopefully we are good vessels.
So that's my connection to the spirit world, is that way. But so I do think there's different dimensions. You hear about astral, as far as our own bodies, our energy body, our astral body, our mental body, we've got layers upon layers of our own soul and over soul, and whatever's going on with that. So we're just really left with guessing as what's going on, because that information's been withheld from us. We don't really know. I'm getting more interested in the idea of, so we're on a plane. There's a dome, and there's something going on with water. Like we're taught about water's above and water's below, and that maybe it's down instead of up. I'm just fishing because I don't know enough, except to say that something's got to explain what we're seeing. And if we're not on a spinning globe, going around the sun with all these other spinning planets, which I'm less and less and less and less and less inclined to believe, then what is going on? And so, I'm getting more interested in what's going on underneath us.
Yeah. To make it all more confusing, we actually don't see right side up, as I'm sure you know. The images are flipped on our rods and cones in our eyes. I'm not sure I don't know how they know that, but on a projector screen, it's all flipped. So we are kind of seeing like I think Jason Rashears calls it a photo negative of another world or another realm. We actually don't see right side up, we see upside down. So it's possible that the waters above are actually below, and the ground that's supposed to be below us is actually above us. And that it could be a trick, could be a lot of different things.
But there's something going on with the world's water, and I've been doing some research lately that's taken me into that area.
Cymatics and the resonant frequency of water and that kind of realm.
More the wells,
water holds memory of the
wells.
Okay.
The fresh water, what I think was an advanced hydrological system, circular wells, and that, again, I don't think the surface of the earth was the way that it is now prior to this cataclysm. So something just blew it up, blew it apart, and fresh water is coming into this picture for me. So I'm just super curious about it now. And my own research, I didn't have any opinion when I started. I was just knew about this ancient civilization and sacred geometry and ley lines, and started tracking them. And then as I was gathering evidence, finding the evidence that yes, they did tamper with our perception of space and time, and changed the earth to a globe and encoded it in different ways. And so and flat earth is not what drives my work, but I do accept it, and I didn't start out that way. And now I'm like, okay, if they lied to us about this, then, what else is going
Anything's
on
possible. Yeah. If you met,
but the most polarizing issue in this community is the shape of the earth. And we don't need to be fighting each other about that,
right?
because some of the most rigid thinkers I encounter will see even the shape of a globe on something and be like, and it's like, no, that's not the issue. Listen
Yeah,
to the information,
whenever
you
somebody
know.
asks me, I just say, I say, don't put me into a box. I'm not a flat earther. I'm not a globe earther, and I am definitely a conspiracy theorist. You can check that box for me. That's me. The JFK bullet, check that box for me. Yeah, I don't like them to put you in a box. I think it's very destructive to say that it's flat. We don't know. We just know that there's not been any curve, and there's been not a single photo of the Earth. So, other than that, your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah. But it is interesting to just try to speculate on, okay, so what's causing that,
Mm-hmm.
But the freshwater thing has really got my attention at this point.
Where's that coming from? The freshwater thing? Is it coming from underneath?
That's the thing. That's the thing. There are these they're called natural wells. I don't know if they're natural or not, but maybe they are. But they're circular in shape. A lot of them are saying, well, this was created by meteor strike. Well, I have my questions about meteors too.
Yep.
I don't think that's what it was. But they don't know where the water's coming from. And we're talking millions of gallons. There's one close to where I live, Montezuma's Well in Arizona. There's a whole bunch of them called the Carolina Bays. They're 360-degree places. It's like there's something, and on alignments, there's something else to these wells. And I don't know enough to know what it is, but I do know enough to ask questions. And I'm working on some research right now that I'm not done with. I have a private research assistant, I guess. He's actually helped me to a lot of breakthroughs, but he's not a content creator or anything like that. So I'm helping get his work out. But he did an alignment between the Quetzalcoatl pyramid at Teotihuacan in Mexico, outside of Mexico City, to Giza, the Great Pyramid of Giza. I'm about halfway through the research on that, and that's one of the main reasons these wells are front and center in my mind, because I was going through West Florida and the Panhandle.
Yep.
And there's just a lot of stuff on this ley line coming up. And so I think by the time I'm done with all the research he's sending my way, I think I'll have a lot more information on certain things, because it does tell a story.
It's part of my story. I went to Florida State, which is in the Panhandle as well, up in it's not Western Florida. It's like in the Central, but in the Panhandle.
So this ley line is cutting right through Panama City Beach and going up across into this area. Is sparsely populated, agriculture, lots of agriculture in Western Florida. It goes through the Florida caverns, which I didn't even know existed. And I'm going through all these circular wells as I'm cutting across, and airports, and I think Mariana, Florida has like a whole bunch of stuff there you wouldn't expect in a little town, relatively small town, and other places. Anyway, it's interesting. I had to stop doing it to do something else. I'm about halfway through what I was working on for that, but I've learned so much from that process of just tracking ley lines.
I got something else to show you, so I don't think you've seen it. So I wanted to know in your researcher experience. So this is one of the million stories and things that I have that don't make any sense and that nobody would believe, and I really don't care. I'm just telling you what it is. So a few years ago, I was driving my car, and it started to fog my window up on the right side of my window. I'm gonna share this if I can find it. Where is it at? Edge. Window. There it is. All right. So I think I can share that. Share. All right. So this is my window. Started to fog up. And this is, I think this is a day after, 2 days after. I didn't wash the window, didn't do anything, but I want to show you the one prior to that. Whoops, wrong one. Hold on. Is it showing it? Yeah, there you go. So this appeared on my window. I don't know if you've ever seen that symbol before or what the hell that is. But it appeared on my window. And then you can't tell by that photo, but there are other photos that I have that actually they're like little small pyramids in there in their shapes. So these shapes or these things have appeared on my window, and then I wipe it off and came back the next day, and then the next day after that I didn't touch it, and there it goes. So it's gone. So these things are just, they manifest in my reality, and I'm proving them. I've taken pictures of them before. I've videotaped a few things that have happened to me, and like a week later, my phone will go into DOS mode, and it'll wipe my memory out, and so I don't have any proof of them. So there's all kinds of stuff that I can talk about, that I have talked about on my channel a little bit before. But have you seen anything like that before? It's almost like a crop circle.
Crop circles come to mind, and the idea that somebody's communicating with you. I absolutely believe that crop circles are higher dimensional in nature.
You think they're cymatically frequency motivated? Yeah.
Yeah, probably cymatically. And there's as far as American crop circles go, there's a lot that have showed up around the Great Serpent Mound and in Ohio, in that area, the Miamisburg Mound. And I think it was one that was around the Serpent Mound that was actually turned into a song. They could play it, that whatever showed up. So I would say, yes, cymatics, and what would come to my mind is some kind of communication.
I've shown it to people who do a lot of research, and they haven't pinpointed it. It looks a lot like a Gnostic wheel symbol or something, but I don't know I don't know what it is. I have an idea that maybe when I'm like 85 years old, I'll see it on TV or something, and then I'll be like, wait a minute, that's it. Where did that come from? There's a show called what is it called? It was on Showtime. It was about Göbekli Tepe, and the girl kept seeing a symbol. I forgot what the name of it is, but she kept seeing a symbol in her dreams, and then it appeared in Göbekli Tepe. And that was ruins, obviously, I have kind of that experience that I'm going to see it somewhere down the road, and it's going to be like a jarring kind of like movies type situation for me, but I don't know what it means.
Well, you're mentioning Göbekli Tepe brings to mind that there's a symbol at Göbekli Tepe that is also on an Aboriginal elder's stomach. And you can look it up. Type in symbol at Göbekli Tepe and Australian Aborigine. So I think there's universal things, and again, we've just been so dumbed down and miseducated, and these things were probably common knowledge back in the day that we don't know anything about.
Yep, absolutely. What else are you working on, Michelle? I want to give you your time to speak about anything you're working on. I know you said well water.
Yeah, so I'm working on I'm continuing to work on tracking that alignment that my friend Aaron sent me. That I think when I'm done with that one, and then another one that he sent me from the Bosnian pyramids, and he's being impulsed, he's being helped by guides. I'm being impulsed, I'm being helped by guides. It's like this has to come from somewhere.
Yep.
Because it's been removed. And I think when I get to the end of that particular research piece, and it's going to take me a little bit because it's time consuming and I've got other things that I'm working on, that it will be very revealing in terms of how the grid has been manipulated and turned into the matrix. And just from what I know right now, it looks like they're utilizing the energy of these pyramids. So what would have been healing and for the benefit of all, they're using for GMO technology, agriculture, um, schools. There's all kinds of elementary schools and high schools. There's military bases. There's nuclear sites. There's all kinds of things just on this one alignment alone. And I've seen similar things in other places. So, just kind of pulling together that when they knocked those original civilization off the face of the earth, they knew all about the grid system, and they've, meticulously set about using it for their own purposes instead of the benefit of life. It's more like power and control, and creating that artificial world that that we've got way too advanced into. I don't see it staying with us, at least not in the form that they wanted it to, but they got pretty far into it.
Well, you mentioned the Matrix. There's a new Matrix coming out. So,
well, and the other thing is, I just joined Planet Fitness not too long ago. I just felt like I needed something to help, stay home pretty much all the time. I needed to start exercising and whatnot. And they have some perks if you pay a higher level, but it includes like hydro massage and massage chairs, hydro massage lounge. Well, I've really gotten my money's worth out of those two.
That's great.
But then I'm doing this alignment between Mexico and Egypt, and I'm finding these fitness places along the way. And then at Planet Fitness, they call their equipment Matrix.
Oh.
And I know there's a connection to something going on. When I was at another place, the place I lived at before, I had a gym membership briefly, and their equipment would tell you when you stopped using it, the elliptical trainer or whatever it was, you have used enough energy to power X whatever. So
X.
Power
X.
It was monitoring our output, our electrical output. So I know there's some kind of connection there, but for right now, the gym membership means a lot to me, so I'll keep going, even though I'm like, Matrix, huh? But
you got to manipulate it. You got to manipulate your own field of matrix.
So I've got that, and I just my research is always taking me deeper and deeper, and I've got some projects here and there coming up, more time or more projects than time, but it's really gratifying to do it. I enjoy it. I never had anything to write about until I started blogging in 2018. I had nothing. I was always a good technical writer, but I had no interest or desire in it. And then when I got this, it's like there's no end in sight. So, and I like to make things as clear and compelling as I possibly can, because when I'm saying things that are completely different from anything we've ever been taught, it has to be pretty compelling. Or it's
well,
like,
if you
who are you?
shoot me an email or a question, and if you have anything to talk about, let's fire it back up.
It sounds great.
Always enjoy talking to somebody with a different perspective, but similar mindset of finding out what the answers are, or where it will take us.
Yeah. I think we're living in exciting times, and we actually have the technology at our disposal to figure things out for ourselves and make our own videos and things like that. I never ever thought I'd be doing anything like this, but the fact that it's available and it's pretty easy to learn. I found an easy video making program.
Nice.
Or I would never have gotten off the ground with that part anyway. So we've got the tools and technology, and we can look things up on our own instead of relying on what we're told. So I do see it getting better. I just don't see this a bad ending for us. And I'm not saying it's not going to be potentially bumpy, but I don't think it's going to be catastrophic at this point. Maybe years down the road, you know, but I think part of our awakening is ultimately about our evolution as a species, as one,
to make it happen, as opposed to
and
letting it happen to us. Yep.
and coming back together as one, and more into unity consciousness, which I think we were in, and then we got knocked out of that. And I think we do have the ability to come back together, and I think that's why a lot of volunteer souls came in. It was so dense and dark here that souls were needed, let's say advanced souls were needed that weren't from here to come in and help the process and raise the vibration.
I agree. I hope it comes sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think it will.
But so stay in touch. We got through a lot of the questions. There's always more to talk about, but we're coming up almost on 2 hours. So I want to be respectful of your time, and I gotta run. I got my matrix keeping me busy during the day, but
Yep.
I enjoy it. So, but thank you so much for coming by, talking to us, and let's do it again.
All
You
right.
got some more stuff.
Sounds
Thanks,
great, Ken.
Michelle. Take
All
care,
right.
guys. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
Have a great day. Thanks. Bye.
Bye, everybody.